I interviewed my Pawpaw because he is very special to me. What is your full name?
My name is Donald Wayne Smith.
Are you named after anyone? If so, who?
As far as I know, I'm not named after anybody.
When is your birthday?
My birthday is October the 18th, 1954.
Many siblings? Tell me their names in order of birth.
Well, I have two sisters. One's older than me and one's younger than me. So it's Lynn, then me, and then Vicky.
What is the most significant date in your life? What happened on that date? Why is it so important to you?
I have a lot of special days in my life. Days that my children were born and my grandchildren. But I'd have to say one of the most special days in my life is the day that I got married to my wife. And it's significant to me because on that day I married somebody that I would spend the rest of my life with.
How old were you when you got married? What is your wedding anniversary?
Well, I will never forget the day when I got married. I was 20 years old, and the day was June the 27th of 1975.
How old were you when you had kids?
Well, when my first child was born, Misty, I was 21. And when my next child, Becky, was born, I was 24. And when Stephen was born, I was 28. And when Ethan was born, I was 36.
What kind of television did you have as a kid?
When I was small, most TVs came in a console. That was kind of like a cabinet. They didn't have portable TVs when I was real small. They came out later on. But our TV, when I was small, was a black and white. And it wasn't until I was about 5 or 6 years old that I even knew anybody that had a color TV. And when we saw that color, we were so jealous. We wanted it so bad. And I was about 12 years old when we got our first color TV. And it's not color as we see color TVs now. It was just kind of tinted a little bit.
How many channels did your TV have? What was your favorite television show growing up?
When we were growing up, there were only 3 channels, and that was channel 2, 5, and 11. Later on, you could get a UHF channel at channel 17, and then later on, channel 36 didn't come in real clear. But 2, 5, and 11 were your basic channels. And my favorite program, I guess, was Gunsmoke. We used to watch that every Saturday night. Just the whole family would get together and we'd watch Gunsmoke.
Years ago, people had party lines and dial tones on the telephones. Explain that to me. What was life like before cell phones?
Up until a few years ago, when you wanted to make a phone call, you would have to go to your phone and it was plugged into the wall, and you would pick up the receiver and hold it to your ear, and you would listen for a dial tone. And a dial tone was a little humming noise that let you know that all the connections were made and you could go ahead and dial the number of the person that you wanted to call. Now, some people were on a party line, and that meant your phone was connected to your neighbor or maybe even several of your neighbors. And so sometimes you would pick up your phone and you would hear your neighbors talking, and it was good manners just to hang up and try again later.
How old were you when you got your first cell phone? What was it like?
I was about 43 years old when I got my first cell phone, and it was not the little cell phones that we have now, and it certainly wasn't a smartphone. All you could do on it was dial out and call, talk on the phone. There wasn't any text messaging or anything, but it was a bag phone, and the bag phone fit in a bag, and it was about the same size as this Kleenex box here, and it had to be plugged into your car. It didn't have a battery, so you had to keep it plugged in all the time. But they were pretty good phones.
What was your first car? Describe it to me. How old were you when you got your first car?
My very first car was a 1968 Mercury Cougar, and it was burgundy with a white vinyl top, and it had white leather interior. It was a pretty car.
An interesting or funny story from your childhood.
I remember when we were growing up, a lot of times my dad would take my older sister Lynn and I for a walk through the woods that were behind our house. And in this walk, we would always come to this little creek, and there was a tree that had fallen across the creek that my dad would carry us on his shoulders across that log to the other side. And he would carry one of us, and then he would go back and get the other one, and then we would go on. Well, this one time, my sister, who was 2 years older than me, my dad was carrying me across on his shoulders, and he looked back, and my sister Lynn was walking across the log behind him. And he was kind of amazed that she was big enough to do that. And she was so proud of herself, and she got to teasing me because I wasn't big enough to do it yet, and she was going to really show off. And so she turned around and walked back across the log, and about halfway she slipped and fell, and she fell into the creek. And it was cold that day, and she still remembers that to this day.
Thanks, Pawpaw.